boys and girls, Mrs. McConnell here. I am here to teach you how to edit and revise your fairy tale writing today. Now, I'm sure you remember that special saying that we've said all year during writing. When I'm done, I've only just begun. How many of you have finished your writing, told yourself you were done, and said you're all ready to turn it in? I bet a lot of you. But here's what I want you to remember today. When you're done, you've really only just begun. Once upon a time, we are always going to remember that it's okay to change things up even after you think you're finished. Because good writers, they edit and they rethink many times throughout the writing process. If something new comes to mind or something better comes to mind, don't be afraid to change it. Don't be afraid to think of something new or add something else. Don't be afraid to get creative. I want you also to pay attention to your tenses. Now remember, we have past tense, present tense, and future tense. If it's in the past, then that means it's already happened. If you begin with your fairy tale with once upon a time, that means you're saying that it already happened. You want to continue that same tense throughout your fairy tale. You don't want to switch in between. I want you to watch this video as a reminder on what your fairy tale should include.
Created using Powtoon.
All right, so the second part is rereading. So I want you to think about rereading your fairy tale many different times before you actually say you're done. The magic number is going to be 3. If you're ready to revise and edit, then you're ready to read over your fairy tale 3 times. The first read, you want to check it for content. Did I write enough? Do I have all those story elements? Think about the intro, the conclusion. Do you have a problem? Do you have a solution? Do you have multiple different scenes? If you do, then you're ready to move on to your second read. You want to read it the second time to check to see, does it make sense? Can I understand and follow along? The third time, you want to read it to check for punctuation, spelling, and grammar. And when you have read your fairy tale 3 times and you've changed things and fixed things, you might just be done with your rereading. However, there's some things that we want to check for. Let's talk about adding some paragraphs. Some of you may have added some already. Some of you might add some more, but you're just not sure how to do that. So why do we need to add those different paragraphs in our writing? Well, we want to make sure we add our writing and make it interesting and exciting. If you write and you add things all together in one big paragraph, it kind of gets confusing and, well, kind of boring. How do we add those paragraphs? Well, you want to remember at the beginning of the sentence that you want to start your paragraph with, you want to hit the space bar 5 times. That means you are indenting. That is letting the reader know that you are starting your paragraph. When do we indent to start a paragraph? Well, we are going to do that 3 different times. You are going to do it when time has changed, when a different character is talking, and when you have introduced a new character or a new part of the story. Speaking of characters talking, you now want to work on dialogue. You want to make sure that throughout your fairy tale, all of your different characters have speaking parts. Let's look at this quote. "But grandmother, what big eyes you have," she said. "The better to see you with, my dear." I'm sure you can all guess what fairy tale that is from. Take a look at these quotation marks in the beginning. They're right before, and they are right after. Remember when writing your fairy tales, you have many different characters. Wouldn't that be very boring if there wasn't any talking? Would you want to listen to a story that sounds like he said, and then she said, and then they said? I sure wouldn't. So that's why we need to fancy our fairy tales by adding that dialogue, which means we need to use those special marks, quotation marks. If your characters are talking or even thinking about something, you should let your reader know by adding those quotation marks around the words that they're saying. Now, when do we do that? Well, we add those quotation marks at many different times. You're going to want to add your quotation marks and then put a comma after the words said or asked. You're going to make sure to begin the first word inside the quotation marks and begin it with a capital letter. Then you're also going to want to put the end mark inside your quotation mark. So let's take a look at this example. Emily asked, "Are you an artist?" Take a look at this comma here. Quotation marks before, quotation marks after, and then look at that question mark. It's inside the quotation marks. So if you take a look over here, there are 3 ways that we're going to use those quotation marks. At the beginning, just like we showed over here and over here. At the end, here and here. And then another time is in the middle. This one's a little bit tricky. It's kind of a challenge. But here we have a sentence that starts with quotation marks here. There are 3 ways to use quotation marks. And then there's a comma because the person is still speaking. Mr. Smith said, and then they're continuing. Here's that comma again. And then you add quotation marks again. But if you practice, you'll figure it out. And then your quotation marks should be at the end. So you want to always remember, capitalize the first letter of the quote, and remember that a comma is used to separate the dialogue and the speaker. And then if you have a question mark or an exclamation mark or a period, that's going to take the place of the comma inside those quotation marks. All right, boys and girls, so that's it for today. But here's what I want you to do. I want you to make sure you go back and you read your fairy tale 3 times for those 3 different reasons. And when you're all finished, then you are ready for tomorrow's lesson on using the checklist. Good luck!